Today I'll be speaking to nutritionist and menopause specialist Alison Bladh. Let me briefly introduce her before I bring her on. Alison is a #1 international best-selling author, award-winning registered nutritional therapist, and women's health expert with over 30 years of experience supporting women through midlife, menopause, and beyond. She is the author of Have a Magnificent Menopause and the founder of an online clinic where she helps women worldwide manage menopause symptoms through tailored programs and one-to-one support. Alison's mission is to help women harness their hormones, restore their confidence, and feel vibrant again, because she believes every woman deserves to feel and look amazing at any age. Hi, Alison. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
I'm excited to talk to you because we're doing this thing this year. The whole 12 months, I'm focusing on the Happiness Project, which is every month we have a different theme. And last month was all about decluttering and energy and clearing out your energy and getting more energy into starting your year. This month, the theme is all about relationships, your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others, your relationship with God. And so we're talking today about hormones and women's health and nutrition, and all of that fits so nicely into the whole concept of taking care of ourselves, the relationship with ourselves. And so can you just start off with telling us a little bit about who you are? I mean, I did introduce you briefly, but just a little bit about who you are. How did you get started with hormones and nutrition and women's health? And then who are some of the people that you help?
Yeah, so my name is Alison, as you've already said, and I am a nutritional therapist, and I am also an esthetician. So I specialize in skin health as well as women's health. Very short, my journey has been quite long, but a short summary of it was when I was a teenager, I had acne. I had very bad skin, which obviously is not really pleasant, is it, for any age, but particularly when you're a teenager, because you've got so many other things going on. I wanted to know what was going on and why my skin had suddenly broken out into this acne. So I started then, even as a teenager, being very interested in how food affected my hormones. What could I do? What lifestyle changes? And with the things that I implemented then, I saw a great difference in my skin. So that was kind of the trigger for my love of hormones, because they're just fascinating. And that triggered me to train to be an esthetician. And I attracted, when I worked in aesthetics, I attracted clients that had hormonal skin issues, in particular teenagers, but also women in perimenopause and menopause, because your skin, can all of a sudden, because of the hormonal changes, then can really go a bit crazy, for want of a better word. Very soon came to realize that the aesthetic side is very effective, but you also need the inside piece. You need the nutrition, you need the lifestyle medicine. And it was also at a time in my life when my mother, all her friends were going through the menopause, and nobody spoke about it. I mean, they don't really talk about it now, but it's getting better. But nobody was talking about the menopause. And I started being fascinated about that because it was such a huge shift in a woman's hormones and a woman's life. So I've made it my mission, really, to help women, particularly women 40 plus, going through this transition in their life with the decline in hormones, to really support them and make them feel better so they can live a fantastic life. It's another transition. It's a phase that you go through. When you're in postmenopause, which is the rest of a woman's life, you should still feel fantastic. So I really want to support women and help them feel great through this transition.
I know you work with a lot of women that are 40 plus. My goal is to also work with women 35 and over, because what I notice is that a lot of these women, once their hormones start going downhill, they start feeling overwhelmed, stressed, burnout. And so one of the questions I have for you is, how do you distinguish between what's genuine burnout and what's actual perimenopausal, menopausal symptoms? Because not everybody goes through perimenopause and menopause around the same time. There are some women that start in their 30s and some in their mid 40s. So how can a woman distinguish between what is genuinely hormonal shifts, and that's what's causing a lot of stress and chaos in their lives, and what's burnout?
Yeah, that is such a great question, because a lot of the symptoms that you will, life's busy, isn't it? And I tend to find with my clients that, there's some of them in their 30s, but the majority of them are in their 40s, that your life's very busy. It's you've got children still at home, maybe, you've got maybe aging parents that need taking care of, you've got a career, and all of this can really mount up, can't it, and create burnout if it's not managed correctly. But then you've got, thrown into this, you've got the mixture of perimenopause, the hormonal fluctuations, and it can be very confusing. I see clients all the time that come to me that haven't even kind of thought about that it could be perimenopause. They're just overwhelmed, exhausted, and they just think that, they've come to this burnout, this overly exhausted phase in their life due to life, which obviously plays a huge part. But when I say to them, okay, have you ever thought about that this could be to do with the decline in your hormones, you could be in perimenopause, they kind of look at me as if to say, no, I'm not in perimenopause. But then they start to really think about this and say, actually, I am feeling like this, I am having this, it could be my hormones. In a way, for these women, it's a bit of a relief, because they've got an answer to why they're feeling like what they're feeling. And as you were saying, it can be difficult, because a lot of the symptoms like fatigue, headaches, all of those things can also be symptoms of perimenopause. There's so many different symptoms in perimenopause. I mean, the list goes on, and it's very individual as well. We all experience it quite differently. But what I say to my clients is, okay, how are you actually feeling? Like, write down your symptoms, because if, for example, you're having, hot flashes, that is a real classic symptom of perimenopause, menopause. When you suddenly feel very, very warm, it's like this wave of heat that comes over you. That is most likely to do with perimenopause. If you're burnt out, if you're exhausted, it's not so common that you have hot flashes. So anything like that is a real sign that you're in perimenopause. Also, a lot of like mood changes. I know a lot of my clients get very anxious. And this is, if you've been a person that's been very calm and you're not really had a lot of anxiety, if you suddenly feel like, you get very stressed, you get very anxious over minor things, that can also be a sign that your hormones are starting to shift, starting to decline. Things like brain fog, not being able to focus, they're also very common menopausal symptoms. So it's really, I think you have to be quite mindful. There's some very useful apps that you can, fill in your symptoms. So you can actually, just do it for a week, log your actual symptoms that you're feeling, because a majority of them probably will be related to menopause. But like I say, there it's quite similar, so it's difficult. But if you really look at them and mindfully think, how am I actually feeling, then you can really get a clearer picture of what is actually going on.
Yeah, I tell a lot of my patients to get a blood test in their mid-30s at 35, just to get a baseline of what's going on, because in your mid-40s and mid-50s, you'll get an idea of what's declining, what's depleted, and that's a really good indication of what's happening with your hormones. And what I deal with is a lot of women between 35 and 45, they get diagnosed with depression and anxiety, when really it's a hormonal shift. And like you said, your mood changes. I'm so glad people are talking more about perimenopause now, and it's become normalized and there's no shame around it. Because I know that when I went through all of those symptoms, I had no idea what was going on. And I found myself more irritable, angrier, my sleep was affected. And it's really difficult to put your finger on exactly what's going on, right? And keeping a journal, like you said, for a week is really, really good. And also taking inventory, like, what's my lifestyle right now? Am I pushing myself too hard? Am I burning the candle at both ends? Because the lifestyle you've had between your 20s and your 30s catches up to you in your 40s, and then you hit a wall, and then that you end up dealing with adrenal fatigue and you're burnt out. Do you deal with all that with your clients?
Yes, absolutely. You know, that there's exhaustion and overwhelm and fatigue and just not knowing where to turn, really, because, like, just as you say, you don't feel like yourself. Something's kind of shifted, but you're maybe not quite sure what that is. And it can be terrible. It can be really frustrating until you understand what is actually going on in the body. I like to call it more of a recalibration. You know, your body is shifting, and you just have to treat it in a slightly different way. And the fact that, you can't, unfortunately, what you did in your 20s, and maybe your early 30s, you just can't do that. You can't live that lifestyle anymore because your body just won't accept it. And I always laugh with my clients sometimes because they'll say, oh, well, I can still do that. I can still do this. And it will catch up with you because of that. There's a reason for it, because of all these hormonal shifts that are going on. Your body just needs a bit more love and affection. It needs to be cared for in a slightly different way than it did when you were younger. And, if you understand that and you do the things that you need to do to support yourself, you can still feel great.
And it goes back to the whole mind shift thing, right? Because a lot of people feel so defeated during this time. They feel like I'm gaining weight and I can't control the weight that I'm gaining. My sleep is affected and I'm angrier and I'm more irritable and all this. And it just feels like throw your hands up and feel like you can't really do anything about it. So what are some things that people can do to go from feeling defeated to feeling more empowered during this period? Because, like I said, we just started talking about this maybe the last 5 years, but for so long, it was all in the shadows. And a lot of divorces happened during this time because a lot of people don't know what's going on and they're fighting a lot and nobody's really explaining that. Jobs change. I mean, there's so many things that can happen, but this is such a normal thing that every single woman has to go through. And I feel like making them feel more empowered is a great start to understanding what's going on and feeling like, okay, there are so many things available to us now. What are some mindset changes and what are some other things people can do from feeling defeated to feeling more empowered?
Yeah, it's unfortunately menopause has had, as you've been saying, a very negative aura around it, hasn't it? It's been very, we haven't really spoken about it. I always say there's there's 3 big shifts of hormones in a woman's life: puberty, pregnancy, and then menopause. And puberty and pregnancy, we'll all talk about those, but then the menopause is just this silence around it, which is getting better. But it's made it more of a hush-hush. I know that when I grew up in quite a strict British family, and, I saw my mother and her friends really struggling. I didn't really understand what was going on myself then, but, from hot flashes to irritability, mood swings, but it was never spoken about. And even if I said to my mom, well, what's the matter? She said, oh, it's just a change, but, we just have to get on with it and soldier through. So, it's not spoken about. And I think women, what we need to do now is we need to demand more information, which is happening slowly. I mean, we still need far more research on women's health in general, in particular menopause and the effects that has on our long-term health. But knowledge is power, isn't it? So I think if you're feeling stuck or you feel, I don't know what's going on, I just feel terrible, read, find out information, get support, go to somebody that specializes in menopause, find a doctor, find a nutritional therapist or whoever that really specializes in that can help you and guide you. because it is a natural transition. This is something that every single woman in the whole world will go through. It's a part of life, isn't it? It's a transition. It's interestingly, in a lot of cultures in the world, menopause is celebrated. It's thought of when a woman has gone through this transition, she's thought of as being wiser. She's the older person. She's very experienced, and she's really looked up to in villages and communities. Whereas in the Western world, as we've said, it's shrouded with this negativity. Interestingly, research shows that women that live in these societies where menopause and being older as a woman is thought of as being positive don't experience menopausal symptoms like we do in the Western world. I find that fascinating. So I think get the knowledge that you need so you understand what is going on, because that gives you power. And then I know this isn't easy. I really do. I really do understand it's not easy to be suddenly super positive. But if you can try to stop all that negative talk and think of, okay, this is a transition I'm going through. It's a natural life phase. I'm going to have my ups and downs here, but I'm going to approach it and support myself in the way that as much as I can, to really feel better. And, don't be afraid to ask for help, because there are many things that you can do. In particular, in my field of expertise, which is nutrition and lifestyle medicine, there's so many things that you can do nutritionally to really make yourself feel better.
I feel like, unfortunately, because of that shame, a lot of people focus on looking younger and staying young looking. Like you could be in your 70s and you want to look like you're 30, because of that negative stigma that once you hit menopause, you become the old crow, or not crow, what do they call them? Just an old woman that, they depicted in folklore about what postmenopause looks like. Where in puberty, even though the symptoms are similar, where there's so much chaos going on in your body, the hormones are shifting, you're moody, you're irritable, there's so many changes to your body that's going on. It's celebrated. You celebrate with your friends in school. Your family celebrates you. You're becoming a woman. When you're pregnant, everybody celebrates. They're so excited about the life you're carrying. But when you're going through menopause, you're doing it by yourself. And there's a lot of shame because you're constantly trying to get ahead of all the changes, the wrinkles, the weight gain, the slower metabolism, the sleep issues, the mood changes. And so because you're struggling by yourself, you feel it more. There's a lot more mental health issues, depression, just feeling anxious. I mean, who wants to get older and change? But it is natural. And if you're constantly in the mindset of I'm going to fight it, then you're creating a lot more stress and probably worsening your symptoms, right?
Yeah, I think one thing that I find with a lot of clients and myself, I'm in menopause, that sitting down connection is so important. Just sitting down with your girlfriends, mine are all roughly the same age as me, and just talking, just like offloading how you feel. And that's the wonderful thing, isn't it, with close friends, is you can really get real and you can just say, I'm feeling terrible and this and whatever you want to talk about. That to me is one of the best things that you can do. You can have a laugh, you can say, oh, I'm feeling like this. You can compare notes on your menopausal symptoms. It's so healing. It's connection is really important. So don't try to do it on your own. Even if you don't want to talk to your friends about it, there is a lot of very good communities out there, online, on social media, that are actually very supportive and very good, where you can really vent how you're feeling, asking for help, say I feel like this. So reach out and really get the connection that you need, because it's super important that you don't sit at home getting depressed on your own.
The connection is so important. I mean, even in the worst trauma, if you talk about it to people, then it just actually helps you heal faster. But when you're dealing with it by yourself, like they say, car accidents, for example, if you're going through that by yourself, you end up prolonging the symptoms as opposed to having a connection of everybody going through the same traumatic event together. And this is why I created the Happiness Project. It's an online community for people to join and focus on things that they're struggling with, and then figure out, how can I cultivate more happiness in my life? But like you said, there are a lot of other communities that people can join and talk to their friends about and be open about. There shouldn't be any shame. And I'm glad that it's being talked about more, but I feel like we're still not there yet to completely reduce the shame and the stigma around it.
Yeah, it's better, isn't it? But it certainly needs more. The menopause conversation isn't, and I think it's what I see is very dependent on where you live in the world. You know, there's some countries where it really isn't spoken about. It's still totally, nobody speaks about it. Whereas particularly in the United Kingdom, there a few years ago, there was a bit of a menopause revolution where a lot of celebrities got behind it, and they did documentaries, and it's just escalated, which is fantastic because the knowledge is really getting out there. But then some other countries, I work globally, where it just isn't spoken about in the slightest. So it is dependent where you are in the world.
You're right. And I'm being very biased here because I am from the United States, and I'm talking about how it's been very common here in the United States. But you're in Stockholm. So how is it over there? And are they as open talking about it as they are here?
It's in Sweden. It's definitely getting better, but it's kind of picking up momentum now. But I mean, this is something that's happened in the last maybe 3-4 years. Before that, it was really, nobody really spoke about it. It was nobody really understood. No one spoke about it. No one really spoke about any of the things that you could do to support yourself. There was kind of like a niche of people that specialized in it, but it certainly wasn't, spoken about in mainstream media and everything. But I was actually talking about menopause years ago when nobody was really listening either. So it's interesting now that it is becoming more of a topic that people talk about.
That is interesting. And it's only been 5 years here as well. It hasn't been that long that people have been talking about it and being so open about it. And I feel like maybe we're just paying attention more because we're around the same age group as all the people talking about it. And so we're seeing it more. Maybe it's not the same. Maybe the young kids are not hearing it as much, but I feel like the more we know, the more we can prepare ourselves. Like I remember when my daughter was going through puberty, I wanted her to start knowing about it 2-3 years before she actually went through it, so it wasn't such a shock. But a lot of women, they don't really learn about it or understand about it or talk about it until they're dealing with all the symptoms. They don't prepare themselves. And I feel like there's so much we can do. And one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you is your background as a nutritionist. And you have a beautiful Instagram page with all these beautiful pictures and foods. And so can you talk a little bit about the impact of our diet and our lifestyle on how we can ease that transition way before we even go through perimenopause?
Yeah, I mean, nutrition and diet is a huge piece, in our overall health in general. But because of the shifts that happen, as we age and we come into perimenopause, you really have to look at your nutrition, because when estrogen declines, the body, there's many things that happen. One thing that we have to understand is that the estrogen and progesterone are not just sex hormones. They have an effect on the whole body. We have estrogen and progesterone receptors all over our body, from brain to skin, all over our body. So when these hormones decline, it affects everything. It isn't just, the reproductive hormones. So with nutrition, what we see is that because of the decline, the body becomes more sensitive to many things, in particular blood sugar balance. That there's a lot of metabolic changes that happen in the body. We can see more inflammation in the body. We can find that we're more stressed, We don't have such a resilience to stress anymore. And that, these affect our hormones, our stress hormones, for example, cortisol. But when we look at nutrition, what we can do is we really want to be, one of the main things to focus on is blood sugar balance, because we need estrogen to help maintain blood sugar balance, amongst many other things. And a lot of women, as we age and we go through this transition, our body doesn't manage blood sugar like it used to, and we can become what is called insulin resistant. And insulin resistance is where, basically, insulin is a hormone that is released into your blood circulation when you eat carbohydrates, when you eat sugar, glucose. And this enables you, insulin is a hormone, it enables the body to utilize this glucose. So it's kind of like the key that opens up the cell that allows this glucose to go in and be used. But when we go through the transition, because of all the hormonal changes, our body can't necessarily utilize the glucose like it used to. It's like your cells become resistant to insulin. It's kind of like the key doesn't work like it used to. And because of that, we really need to think about what we're eating. We need to manage our blood sugar. Now, the best way to do that is to, first of all, is to really try to avoid as much as possible. I know it's not simple because they're everywhere. Ultra processed foods, like packaged foods with a list of ingredients on. Half of them you probably don't even know what they are. There's a lot of sugar, refined carbohydrates, trans fats, fats that we don't necessarily want to consume. And all of this has an effect on your blood sugar, particularly the carbohydrates, the refined carbohydrates, the sugars will shoot your blood sugar up. These ultra processed foods are very easy to digest. So they kind of, you eat them and they go immediately out and shoot your blood sugar up. But that's not what we want. We want to have our blood sugar more stable. So best thing to do is to eat what we call whole foods. And it really doesn't have to be complicated. I'm very much into realistic, recipes and eating, because we haven't got time, have we? But trying to remove as much as possible of all these ultra processed foods, packaged foods, and just eating food like we were meant to eat as human beings. Foods like, if you eat meat, a chicken, vegetables, some broccoli, some cabbage, cauliflower, buying the actual food so you can look at it and see what it is. That is how we were meant to eat as human beings. We weren't meant to be eating all this processed, sugar-ridden foods. They're terrible for our health. And, we're seeing this now in the world that there's so much chronic disease, obesity. Okay, there's other factors coming into play here, but one of them is absolutely the ultra-processed foods and the way that we eat, takeaway foods. So looking at blood sugar balance is very key, and this becomes so important when we go into menopause. And then really thinking about what you're eating. Certain things are very important for us, like fiber-rich foods. Now, I know fiber isn't actually spoken about very much. We talk a lot about protein. There's been so much information in all the media and everything about protein, which is great because you do need protein. But fiber plays a really important role in our digestive health. But as women, it also helps to remove excess estrogen. It helps for you to eliminate estrogen that's been used. It detoxifies estrogen. And particularly when you're in perimenopause and when you're in your 30s, you can suffer from estrogen dominance, which means that your estrogen is quite high, and that in itself can lead to different symptoms. So we want to keep our digestive tract, our gut, moving nicely. We want to be able to eliminate the used estrogens, because what happens if you don't do that? Your body can reabsorb them. So eating fiber-rich foods is really important for women. In particular, cruciferous vegetables have been shown to have a wonderful detoxifying effect on estrogen. Cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, they're what we call the cruciferous vegetables. And so focus on fiber. If you're eating a lot of plants, and fruit, then you will be getting enough fiber. But it really helps to support gut health, estrogen detoxification, and also blood sugar balance, because fiber is hard to digest, or harder to digest. And then we want to look at healthy fats. I know a lot of people think, oh no, I'm not going to eat fat, particularly if you've maybe put on a little bit of weight during menopause. We always associate the word fat with, oh, I'm going to put weight on, but that isn't really how it is. We would need fat for hormone production. For healthy fats are very important to reduce inflammation in the body. They support brain health. They support skin health. And when I say healthy fats, I mean things like olive oil. I mean, that's fantastic olive oil for many things. Avocados, nuts and seeds, good old-fashioned butter. The fats that we want to remove is like the trans fats, the highly processed fats that have been heated to very high temperatures. So they've actually changed their chemical structure. They can cause inflammation in the body. Protein, very, very key. We need protein as women. We need even more as we get older because we lose muscle mass. We need it for bone health. We need it for everything. It's like the building blocks of the body. So the easiest way to describe it is when you look at what you're eating, look at your plate and eat in balance. So you want protein on your plate, roughly about a palm size. You want some sort of healthy fats, a tablespoon of olive oil, maybe over your vegetables. And then you want carbohydrates, but people don't always associate vegetables with carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are vegetables. I mean, they turn into glucose in the system. They obviously have other nutrients in there. But what we want to think about, particularly as we age as women, is we don't necessarily need as much carbohydrates. The type of carbohydrate, things like white rice, potatoes, white pasta, all of those things that we maybe fill up half our plate with, cut down on that and fill up on all these wonderful vegetables and salads and all of those things with healthy fats. I'm not saying you need to go carbohydrate free. That isn't how I work, but I'm just saying that you need to maybe reduce the white carbohydrates and fill up on more fiber rich foods. So the nutritional conversation, I could talk about it for hours, but there's some of the things that you can actually incorporate to feel better during menopause.
The food it's interesting that you're saying all of that, because we're struggling in the US with the standard American diet, which is, the acronym stands for SAD, because it is mostly processed, convenient foods, and it's causing obesity and health issues and hormonal issues. But you're in Sweden and in Europe, you guys are protected against all the toxins that are sprayed on our foods. But yet the way you're talking is you guys are struggling with some of the similar things of the fast, convenient foods. People aren't eating as much of the whole foods. So are you guys struggling with similar issues as far as the standard American diet impacting Europe as well?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think it's quite as bad as it is in the US. I think our culture in many European countries is that we don't eat as many takeaway foods as you do in the US. But yeah, I mean, ultra processed food, refined, all of those, really packaged foods are everywhere. Yeah. It's a very toxic food environment that we live in. And I think that maybe not everywhere in the world, but a lot of countries really struggle, and you can see that in the health in the nation that people are suffering from obesity. There's a lot of chronic diseases, blood sugar imbalance, inflammation. All of these things stem from, that core of not healthy foods. That isn't, we're not supposed to eat as humans. We're not supposed to eat like that. We're not meant to eat things that have got 40 different ingredients on that have been produced in a factory. We were meant to be foraging in the forest and eating, foods that we found.
And being more active. Well, the thing that happens with these toxins that are sprayed on our food, and then eating foods that are probably microwaved or come in a lot of plastic packaging, what it's doing is clogging our liver. And when our liver is not able to detoxify some of these things, like you said, the body ends up reabsorbing all the toxins and estrogens and the sex hormones. And then so we end up having imbalances throughout our body. It causes inflammation. And the simplest thing is to, like you said, just cut back. I don't want to make it seem like it's doom and gloom, but cook more, eat healthier foods, swap your oils for healthier fats, and make little changes until I like the idea of leaning into it, because it took me years to make the change. I used to be a big carb addict, as far as I was a vegetarian that didn't eat a lot of vegetables. And so when people would tell me, you need to reduce the carbs you're eating, I would freak out, because I'm like, what am I going to eat? Because I don't know what else to eat. I'm not eating meat. I don't really like to cook. And so what am I supposed to eat? And it was only after my hormones completely went out of whack that I was forced to change and learn different ways of eating, and it took me slowly to like shift into maybe reducing the amount of pizza I was eating, and then adding more vegetables, and learning how to cook different things, and not cooking the heck out of my vegetables to the point that they're soggy and gross. And that's why a lot of people hate vegetables, because they're cooked so much that there's no taste left in it anymore. So learning how to cook them appropriately. So those are some of the changes that I had to make. And I know that for some people, they might feel the same way, that I don't have time. What else am I supposed to do? And for a lot of people, I say, when you're going to go get fast food, stop at a restaurant that has food that's a little bit healthier than what you're normally used to. Maybe get a sandwich that's made out of vegetables and cleaner foods and meats, instead of getting the hamburger and the fries. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I love that. I'm very much into doing small things, because small things over time have a huge impact. And it is difficult. Habit change is very, very difficult. But if you just implement a small thing, like exactly as you were saying, just think, okay, this week I'm going to try and have a little bit more vegetable on my plate. I'm going to maybe reduce the French fries and have more vegetables. I'm going to add more protein to my plate this week. But you can, even if you don't have time to cook, you can still, from the grocery store, you can, for example, you could buy, rather than buying processed meat, you could buy a cooked chicken, that's been cooked. You could buy a whole cooked chicken, and you could buy a bag of salad that's already chopped, a few tomatoes, cucumber. You've got a fantastic meal there, and maybe some olive oil over your salad. That doesn't take you any time. I think, we make excuses, don't we, sometimes as well, for making habit change, because it can be uncomfortable, but it's so easy to do certain things. And once you start eating more like that, you will start feeling better, and that, of course, motivates you to do more changes. On the programs that I run, it's really interesting to see. We put in very small things, very small changes, and I'll say, okay, well, when you've done that, it might take you a couple of weeks. We'll move on to the next thing. And it can be something as simple as drinking a glass of water when you wake up in the morning, first thing before you do anything else. And they'll get that in place. And once they've done that, say, okay, that's fine. Okay, well, now we're going to focus on eating a palm size of protein at one meal a day. So if you try to do everything at once, you'll become overwhelmed, and you just think, oh, I can't do this. And you'll go back to your old habits. Small things add up over time.
And I know it's overwhelming too, because there's so much conflicting information out there. And I'm kind of resistant to this huge push about eating over 100 grams of protein a day. That's a lot. And I think it's unrealistic and possibly unhealthy. But I saw this meme that said, no one has ever pushed me to eat more protein no drug dealer pushed me to do drugs the way people are pushing me to do protein. And it's feeling like, what's going on? Like, why all of a sudden we're supposed to have over 100 grams of protein? That's a lot of protein. And so there are these fads that come and go, and then later on you realize, okay, that didn't sit well with me intuitively, and now I know it wasn't healthy. So what are your thoughts about that? And is it really necessary to eat that amount of protein in a day for a woman?
Yeah, it's interesting what you say about fads. That in the nutritional world, there's always something, isn't there, that somebody has decided, oh, we should do this or we should do that. What I say is based on research. I work very evidence based, so what I say has some substance. I can actually back up with facts. And when it comes to protein, it has been shown that we do need to eat, as we age as women, we do need to consume more protein. But when I say more, I don't agree that you need to eat over 100 grams of protein a day. I think that is too much. And the majority of people won't be weighing their protein because long term, it's not feasible, is it? But what I found, saying that a palm size, which roughly, obviously depending on what it is you're eating, is about 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal, is what the majority of the research is actually saying can be beneficial for women as we get older. But I think it's also very individual, isn't it? I mean, if you're doing lots of, if you're very, very active and you're doing a lot of workouts and you're doing a lot of weight training and all of that, then maybe you maybe need a little bit more. But I don't think you need to go overboard with protein. So roughly about 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal.
See, that sounds reasonable, but to have, like, if I have maybe 3 or 4 eggs in the morning, or have some piece of chicken for lunch on my salad, or have a salmon patty with dinner, or whatever, I mean, that seems doable. But for me to stress myself out so much that I'm not getting over 100 grams of protein, and this is why a lot of people, they feel so many, again, conflicting information. These influencers are pushing a fad, and they feel overwhelmed, and they're like, okay, I'm just going to go back to the way I'm normally eating because this is way too much. And I found myself physically reacting to that, like getting angry with this constantly from every direction. 100 grams of protein, 100 grams, you're going to basically wither away and die if you don't follow what this recommendation is. And that is not accurate. Listen to yourself and see what sounds realistic for you. And but like you said, eat more protein than you normally are eating right now. Add a little bit more fiber than you're eating right now. Add more, be more mindful. Like I always want to talk about, love your body and love your gut and your brain, and make sure you're providing nutrients to both. And as long as they're being fed, they're happy and they're healthy, and they're doing what we're supposed to do. But the next fad that I wanted to ask you about, again, I'm wondering how realistic this is. I know there's research behind it, but it's being really pushed hard, is the creatine phase. I know there's benefits to it, but tell me a little bit about this phase, and do all women need creatine?
Yeah, that's really funny. I recently wrote an article for a newspaper about, they were doing there's a lot in the media at the moment. There's people want loads of information about creatine because it is the new thing, isn't it? I think the thing about creatine is that it has got a lot of research behind it. It's probably one of the best research supplements, and it is relatively safe. We do know a lot about creatine. And for me, in my niche with women's health, the reason that it's kind of exploded there is because we found that researchers noted that it can have effect on brain health, energy levels in the brain, because creatine was initially, something that people used in the gym, because it's something that you can take, if you're doing workouts, because it helps for energy production. So you can maybe work out a little bit harder than you would have done before, because it helps to boost energy production. But your brain is a very energy craving organ. It needs a lot of energy to function. And they've what they've shown in some research is that creatine may be beneficial for, cognition, for focus, concentration, those things. And I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with creatine. Creatine is, it can be a useful supplement. I don't think everybody needs to take it. But if you maybe feel that you're feeling very tired, you're suffering from a lot of stress, you maybe do work out a lot, and the normal things that you're doing aren't really helping, then, why not try creatine? What the research, interestingly, has shown is that if you are, exhausted, overwhelmed, it tends to have a better effect than, if you're not really suffering from any of those sort of symptoms. But it's like anything, isn't it? There's these fads where certain supplements suddenly become super popular. But what creatine, as I said, it is one that does have a lot of research behind it, and it's relatively safe and easy to use, and it doesn't really taste of anything, so it's quite an inoffensive supplement.
Yeah, it is a really good one, but I think people actually need to work out to use it, or maybe I'm wrong with that. So tell us a little bit about your book, the Having a Magnificent Menopause. Tell us a little bit about what that is, and where people can find it.
Yeah, my book was launched in August last year. Have a Magnificent Menopause. It's in the background. You probably see it there. It's very pink. It is basically my 35 years of experience put into one book about, exactly as it says, how to have a magnificent menopause. It's a straightforward guide to looking good and feeling great. Because when I was doing research on this book, one thing that made me smile was all the women that I asked about it said, you know what, just tell me what to do. Cut all the nonsense, all the academic, all of that. Just tell me what to do, because my brain capacity, I haven't got the the energy to read loads and loads and loads of text. So it's a very straightforward guide to exactly what you need to do to feel good during menopause. From sleep to nutrition to skin health. With my esthetician side, there's a lot in there. There's a big chapter on skincare and beauty. Yeah, it's just packed full of information about how to have a magnificent menopause in a very realistic, down-to-earth way that, everyday life can, we can incorporate it into everyday life. It's easy things that can really make you feel better. And it's evidence-based, it's referenced at the back. So it's got research behind it. Sorry, you can get it in Amazon. Yeah. It's very easy to find on Amazon. Is probably the easiest way to find it.
So where can people find you and connect with you if they needed to, learn more about you and your work?
I think the best place is my website, which is alisonbladh.com. On there, you can find there's lots of resources, there's lots of free downloads, meal plans, etc. And also my contact details. I'm on virtually all social media platforms. Just if you look at Alison Bladh, you'll find me on almost everything. And you can learn more about my work. I do write a lot for magazines and newspapers as well. So you can find all of that on my website.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your wisdom and your insight. This was a great conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.